The morning air was sharp with the scent of hay and damp earth as Isla trudged up the muddy lane leading to the stables. Her boots sank slightly into the softened soil, and she tugged at her worn jacket, trying to steady the knot of nervous energy in her stomach. Today she would meet the horse her father had reluctantly assigned to her, the one everyone whispered about, the one no one else wanted. Her father, a man of exacting standards and little patience for weakness, had never hidden his doubts about her. Isla was the middle child in a family where skill equaled respect. Her older brother was a natural rider, commanding attention and praise in every competition. Her younger brother possessed an uncanny ability to calm even the most stubborn horses with a whisper. And Isla? She had grown up the sensitive one, the daughter whose successes were always measured against her brother's, whose tears over a frightened foal were dismissed as sentimentality. Her father respected strength and precision, and Isla had spent years trying, failing, and trying again to earn even a flicker of that approval. "Shadow's all yours, Isla. Don't expect miracles," he said that morning, handing her the reins with a nod that was neither warm nor cruel, but heavy with disbelief. "He's difficult." Her chest tightened. Isla had dreamed for years of training a perfect show horse, sleek, obedient, majestic, the kind of horse that would carry her to victory and applause. Instead, she faced a horse infamous for his unpredictability, a creature whose reputation made even seasoned trainers shake their heads. The stable door creaked as she pushed it open, and the smell of straw, musk, and something wild hit her all at once. Shadow stood in the corner, his coat the color of midnight, streaked with mud, his tangled mane falling in uneven locks across a narrow, intelligent face. His eyes, dark and sharp, studied her without flinching. He didn't move, didn't bow, didn't approach. He simply regarded her as if silently asking, "Who are you to command me?" Isla swallowed hard. Determination clenched in her chest. "I can do this. I have to." Years of trying to prove herself in a family that valued results above all else had prepared her for the challenge. She would not back down. The first days were chaotic. Shadow had a mind of his own, and it was nothing like Isla had ever trained against. He refused to step into certain paddocks, sidestepped at the slightest touch, and occasionally bolted mid-session, almost as if testing her resolve. When Isla tried to lead him through the obstacle course she had meticulously set up, he would deliberately veer off path, knock over a jump, or stop dead in the middle of the arena to stare at something invisible to her. I don't understand you," Isla muttered one evening, wiping mud from her gloves. Exhaustion seeped into her bones. Every session felt like a battle of wills, and Shadow always seemed to have the upper hand. Yet sometimes, in the middle of what seemed like random defiance, Shadow would pause at a particular spot in the stall or paw at the ground where something lay hidden beneath the straw. One afternoon, as Isla tried to coax him onto the training track, he darted suddenly toward a corner of the barn she hadn't noticed. Startled, she followed, and discovered a small, tarnished locket buried beneath the hay. Her breath caught. It wasn't valuable in the way a trophy might be, but it had been missing for days. Shadow had not only found it, he had insisted she see it. For the first time, Isla felt a flicker of understanding. Shadow wasn't just being difficult. He seemed to be guiding her attention toward things she had overlooked. She reached out cautiously, running her hand along his mane. "Are you trying to show me something?" she whispered. Shadow blinked slowly, nostrils flaring, then nudged the locket gently, almost as if confirming her thought. It was a small, almost imperceptible moment, but it planted a seed in Isla's mind. Shadow wasn't the worst horse her father had warned her about. Perhaps he had his own way of showing intelligence, one that she needed to learn to interpret. Over the following week, Isla began paying attention to the subtle cues Shadow gave her. A twitch of an ear, the flare of a nostril, a deliberate pawing of the ground. He was unpredictable, yes, but patterns emerged, small signs that hinted at a reasoning behind his actions. Shadow seemed to notice things she didn't. A disturbed patch of soil, a glimmer of metal under the straw, or a faint scent leading somewhere unseen. Isla's frustration remained. Training him was exhausting, but it was now mingled with fascination. Shadow challenged her, tested her patience, and occasionally defied her expectations in ways that made her wonder if he truly understood her intentions. Slowly, a bond began to form, not the immediate, easy kind she had imagined with a perfect show horse, but something deeper, built on observation, trust, and respect. The first real test came sooner than she anticipated. A series of minor thefts had left the town restless. Tools from sheds, jewelry disappearing from windowsills. One afternoon, Mrs. Hargrove's granddaughter approached Isla, clutching a crumpled note. "Please find what's lost. It's important." Isla felt a flicker of hope, one that had nothing to do with skill and everything to do with the strange connection forming between her and Shadow. She followed him into the woods behind the town. Shadow moved with purpose, no longer the erratic, stubborn horse she had struggled to control. He guided her through mud and brambles, pausing at subtle signs she could barely perceive. Hours passed as the sun dipped low, until finally Shadow stopped, lowered his head, and pawed the ground with deliberate force. Isla knelt and uncovered a small wooden box containing the missing necklace and coins. She looked up at him, a mix of astonishment and admiration. Shadow leaned close, his breath warm against her cheek, as if to say, "See? You just had to notice." Walking back to the stables, Isla felt a thrill she had never known. Shadow had not only become her challenge, but also her companion, a partner in mysteries yet to be revealed. Perhaps he had chosen her for reasons neither of them yet understood. And for the first time she realized, being underestimated wasn't a curse. It was an opportunity. No one else could have handled Shadow. And maybe, just maybe, that was the point. The day before, Isla had heard the troubling news. A small collection of heirloom jewelry had gone missing from the town museum. The items were irreplaceable, passed down through generations, and the entire town whispered anxiously about thieves and misfortune. The police had no leads. Isla had hesitated at first. She wasn't an investigator, and she knew her father would disapprove, but the spark of curiosity she felt about Shadow's abilities refused to be ignored. Perhaps today would be the day she truly tested what he could do. "All right, Shadow," she murmured, running her fingers along his silky mane. The horse shifted beneath her touch, ears flicking attentively, nostrils flaring as if he understood the gravity of the task ahead. "Let's see if you can help." Shadow gave a subtle nicker in response, a gentle reassurance, then nudged her forward, moving toward the alley behind the museum. Isla followed carefully, boots squelching in the damp cobblestones. Roots and uneven stones threatened to trip her with every step. The quiet of the evening was heavy, almost tangible, broken only by the distant crow of a rooster and the soft clatter of a loose sign swaying in the wind. Shadow's movements were purposeful and deliberate, each hoofball careful, as if aware of unseen dangers lurking in the shadows. The alley loomed ahead, dark and narrow. Isla tightened her grip on the reins, her pulse quickening. She could feel Shadow tense beneath her, muscles coiled like springs. He paused suddenly, nostrils twitching, then lowered his head to sniff at the cobblestones. Isla crouched, peering at the spot he indicated. Small fragments of torn velvet clung to cracks, and a faint trail of dust seemed to shimmer in the dim light, almost imperceptible, but to Shadow it was a map leading somewhere important. "Good boy. You see it, don't you?" she whispered, heart pounding with excitement. Shadow responded with a soft nicker, brushing against her arm as if to encourage her forward. Together they moved cautiously along the alley, Shadow pausing to sniff, then nudging forward, his every motion deliberate. The narrow alley behind the museum storage doors appeared ahead, and Shadow stopped, pawing the ground insistently. Isla approached the door and tried the handle. Locked. Shadow circled, sniffing along the edges, stamping his hoof near a loose brick in the wall. Isla bent down, pressing her hands against it. The brick moved with effort, revealing a small hollow cavity hidden in the wall. Inside, nestled among old straw, lay a collection of necklaces and brooches, the very items reported missing. Isla's breath caught in her throat. Shadow had led her to the exact spot. Awe and disbelief mingled in her chest as she glanced at him. He nudged her shoulder gently, calm and proud, as if to say, "I told you I could do it." Just then, footsteps echoed behind them. Isla spun around to see the museum curator, a tall woman with sharp eyes rushing toward them. "Isla! What? How did you—" Her voice faltered as she saw Shadow and the recovered jewelry. We just found them," Isla said softly, brushing stray bits of straw from the pieces. Shadow stepped closer, nostrils flaring, alert to any sudden movement. The curator's eyes widened further, a mixture of awe and disbelief. "A horse led you to them?" Isla nodded, keeping her voice calm despite the excitement bubbling in her chest. Shadow nickered softly, pressing gently against her hand, as if savoring the victory and the recognition he had earned. Later that evening, Isla returned to the stables, still glowing from the adventure. The sky had deepened into a velvet twilight, mist curling over the paddocks, silvering the grass under the first slivers of moonlight. But the glow of triumph dimmed the moment she saw her father standing by the stables, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes sharp with disapproval. "What did I hear today?" he demanded, voice sharp, low, and controlled. "Running off to the museum? Searching for stolen jewelry? Isla, what were you thinking?" Isla hesitated, feeling the thrill of discovery clash with fear. Her heart still raced from the adrenaline of the rescue. I just wanted to see if Shadow could do it. He led me there," she said, her words careful but firm. Her father's gaze hardened, piercing through her. "A horse led you. Isla, this isn't a game. You could have been hurt, or worse. You could have embarrassed yourself and this family. Shadow is not a tool for adventure. You will not involve him in this again. Do you understand?" "Yes, Father," she said quietly, suppressing the flare of defiance that burned in her chest. Inside, however, determination surged like wildfire. "If he won't see it, I will. Shadow and we'll prove it, even if he doesn't approve." Her father turned away, muttering under his breath about recklessness and responsibility, leaving Isla standing in the moonlit paddock. Shadow nickered softly beside her, nudging her arm, as though sensing her conflicted emotions. She scratched behind his ears, feeling the warmth and loyalty radiating from him. That night, as Isla walked slowly through the quiet paddocks, Shadow following silently, she felt a thrill and a sense of resolve unlike anything she had ever known. The town may not understand, her father may not understand, but she and Shadow together were capable of extraordinary things. The mist swirled at their feet, curling around hooves and ankles, lending an almost ethereal quality to the stables. She thought about all the times Shadow had surprised her, the sudden halts, the curious sniffing at spots that seemed meaningless, the uncanny patience and understanding he displayed. It wasn't just instinct, there was intelligence there, a deliberate, purposeful thought behind every movement. And if no one else believes us, that just makes it all the more important that we do. She could feel it, a sense of destiny, quiet but insistent. Shadow wasn't just a horse. There was purpose behind his actions, perhaps even a hidden story, a mysterious past that waited to be discovered. And Isla, despite her father's warnings, knew that they were meant to explore it, together. The moon rose higher, silvering the stables and casting elongated shadows across the paddocks. Isla paused at the gate, looking out into the darkness beyond the familiar fences. Somewhere in that darkness lay secrets, perhaps even dangers that Shadow could sense long before she could. The thought thrilled her. Tomorrow we'll take another step, another mystery, another chance to see what he's truly capable of. Shadow stamped softly as if acknowledging her thoughts. Isla smiled, a quiet determination settling over her. This partnership, secret, untested, extraordinary, was no longer just a game. It was a mission, a calling, and the night had only begun to hint at what lay ahead. The town was quiet that evening, a silver mist curling along the cobblestone streets as Isla led Shadow out of the stables. Every step squelched softly in the damp earth, the faint smell of rain lingering in the air. Her father had warned her again that morning, his voice low but firm. "Isla, this ends tonight. Shadow is a horse, not a detective. If you go anywhere, you do it under my supervision or not at all." Isla's jaw tightened. "I understand," she said, keeping her tone neutral. But inside, defiance sparked like fire. She couldn't ignore the small voice that said Shadow could do more, that they could do more. Not for glory, not for recognition, but because she knew he could. And tonight, the mission was urgent. A boy from the neighboring farm had gone missing. Search parties had combed the woods at the edges of town without success. Isla had only heard the rumors, but Shadow had been restless all afternoon, pawing at the gate, ears flicking toward the darkened tree line. It was almost as if he knew where to go. She gave him a reassuring pat. "All right, Shadow, let's find him." Shadow's eyes glinted in the dim light, muscles coiled beneath his sleek coat, every sense alert. They moved quickly through the fog-shrouded fields, hooves barely making a sound. The mist clung to the grass, dampening every sound, making the night feel both alive and dangerous. The boy's scent was faint, almost lost in the damp earth, but Shadow's nostrils flared, ears swiveling like radar. He paused at a thick copse of trees, then darted forward, brushing past brambles with surprising agility. Isla struggled to keep up, mud soaking her boots, branches tearing at her jacket, but she refused to fall behind. "Wait, Shadow! Slow down!" she called, her voice tight with worry. He barely glanced at her, every movement deliberate, every instinct focused. It was as though he knew exactly where they needed to go. The clearing opened suddenly, mist curling low along the ground. Shadow halted abruptly, stamping, circling a patch of undergrowth, pawing violently. Isla crouched, peering through the leaves, and froze. There, partially hidden in a shallow ditch, was the boy, trembling and crying but unharmed. His clothes were dirty, scratched by brambles, but his wide eyes reflected relief and awe. "Don't worry, I've got you," Isla whispered, extending a hand. Shadow stepped closer, nuzzling the boy gently as if to reassure him. The boy blinked, and a tentative smile appeared. Shadow's calm presence seemed to say, "Everything is going to be all right." Isla helped the boy to his feet, brushing dirt from his jacket. "You're safe now. Shadow. He led me to you," she explained. The boy stared at the horse, wonder overtaking fear. Shadow's ears flicked toward the woods again, alert as if signaling more dangers lurked in the dark. Isla followed his gaze and nodded. There were always more mysteries, more people who might need their help. The walk back was quiet, the fog thick around them. Isla's legs ached, her clothes soaked, but her heart raced with triumph. Shadow moved with deliberate care, every step measured, as if he understood the gravity of the night's events. When they returned to the stables, her father was already there, arms crossed, jaw tight. The boy's safe return had reached him swiftly. "What did you do?" he demanded, voice low but seething. "I told you not to. Isla, you could have been hurt. Or worse. I found him, she said simply, breathless. Shadow knew where to go. She paused, searching for words. He led me to him. Her father's eyes narrowed. A horse led you? Isla, you can't keep risking yourself like this. It's reckless and irresponsible. Isla met his gaze, steady despite the fear curling in her chest. Father, Shadow can do things no one else can. I have to explore it. I have to know what he's capable of. We could help people. More than just tonight. He shook his head, jaw tight. And if something happens to you? If he fails? Don't expect me to protect you from the consequences. That night, Isla lay awake, listening to the barn sounds, the soft nickers, the rustle of straw, Shadow's rhythmic breathing. The horse was quiet in his stall, but she could feel his presence as if he were standing guard over her thoughts. Her mind replayed the rescue, the boy's terrified eyes, Shadow's precise movements, the surge of adrenaline when she realized how much they had accomplished together. Her father's warnings echoed, mingling with the thrill of what they had achieved. I can't stop now, she thought. Not when he's capable of this. Not when we could save lives, uncover truths. She imagined Shadow leading her through more mysterious paths, discovering hidden dangers, solving problems no one else could. The partnership they had begun in secret was no longer a test. It was a calling. The night deepened, the fog thickening around the stables. Moonlight glinted on Shadow's coat as he shifted in his stall, nostrils flaring slightly, ears flicking. It was as if he understood her thoughts, agreeing silently. Together they could uncover mysteries that had remained hidden for years. Somewhere deep inside, Isla felt the stirrings of destiny. Shadow was more than a horse. He carried intelligence, purpose, and perhaps a history she hadn't yet understood. The night stretched before them, full of secrets waiting to be discovered, and Isla knew, as she drifted toward sleep, that this was only the beginning of their journey. The following week, Isla barely slept. Her father's warnings still echoed in her mind, but the thrill of Shadow's discoveries had ignited a fire she couldn't extinguish. Rumors had reached her of a local merchant whose shipment of rare artifacts had vanished overnight, stolen from a locked warehouse. The authorities were baffled and the town murmured about a hidden thief. Shadow seemed restless that morning, pacing the paddock and tossing his head, ears flicking toward the distant streets. Isla watched him, a sense of anticipation curling in her chest. It was as though he understood that something urgent awaited. All right, Shadow, she said quietly, brushing her fingers along his mane. Another test. Let's see what you can do. He flicked his ears, nudged her gently, and they set off toward the warehouse district. The fog hung low, curling along cobblestones and around dimly lit street lamps. Shadow moved with deliberate care, nostrils flaring, eyes scanning every detail. As they approached the warehouse, Shadow paused abruptly at a side alley, pawing at the ground. Isla crouched, peering through the mist. Faint scratches in the dirt, almost imperceptible to the human eye, marked a path leading around the back of the building. Shadow circled, ears swiveling, sniffing, then stamped insistently near a pile of discarded crates. Isla moved closer, brushing away dirt and debris, and found a small, folded piece of parchment partially hidden beneath a crate. The handwriting was tiny, hurried, almost indecipherable. It was a note, an address, a time, and a single word scrawled in the margin. Tonight. She gasped softly. Shadow nickered, nudging her shoulder as if saying, "This is only the beginning." Isla realized that the theft wasn't random. Someone was planning something, and Shadow had guided her to the first clue. Night fell, and Isla returned home, heart pounding. She could barely hide her excitement, or her fear. Shadow seemed unusually alert, nostrils flaring, ears swiveling toward sounds she couldn't hear. The horse's behavior was unnerving, yet exhilarating. Her father's voice came suddenly from the doorway, low and cutting. "Isla, what are you doing?" I found something," she said cautiously, holding the parchment. "Shadow. He led me to it." He shook his head, exasperated. "I warned you. This is reckless. You could have been hurt. You could have been caught. You have no right to put yourself or him in danger like this." Isla met his gaze, defiance flickering. "Father, he's different. Shadow isn't just a horse. He notices things we can't. He understands. More than we realize. I have to follow it." Her father's jaw tightened and he turned away. "Then do it on your own. But don't expect me to approve. Don't expect me to protect you when this goes wrong." Later that evening, Isla returned to the warehouse district under the cover of darkness. Shadow moved silently, eyes sharp, sniffing the faint scent of hidden footprints and dust that no one else would notice. He led her down narrow alleys, pausing at subtle signs, a scuff on the cobblestones, a piece of fabric caught on a nail, a faint metallic scent lingering in the air. Hours passed as they navigated the maze of shadows. Shadow's intelligence became more evident with each step. He seemed to anticipate obstacles, signaling her to stop or turn, moving with uncanny precision. It was as if he could see things invisible to humans, like pieces of a puzzle only he could sense. Finally, they arrived at a concealed door behind a stack of crates. Shadow pawed insistently, sniffing, then pressed his nose against a small crevice in the wood. Isla realized he was guiding her to the exact spot where the stolen artifacts were hidden. She inhaled sharply, adrenaline surging. "This is it, Shadow. Let's see what you've found." Inside, the crates were overturned, revealing the missing items, fragile, priceless, and carefully packed, hidden but not well enough for Shadow to miss. The horse stepped back, calm, as if proud that Isla had followed his lead. Walking back through the foggy streets, Isla felt a mixture of exhilaration and unease. Shadow's abilities were extraordinary, yes, but they were also mysterious. How did he know where to go? How could he anticipate danger? Questions pressed at the edges of her mind, hinting at a story hidden in Shadow's past, something the town, and perhaps even her father, would never fully understand. She returned to the stables silently, tucking the artifacts away until the authorities could be discreetly notified. Shadow stood patiently in his stall, nostrils flaring, ears alert. Isla reached out, brushing her hand along his mane, feeling the warmth of his body and the steady beat of his heart. "You're extraordinary," she whispered, almost to herself. Shadow blinked slowly, nostrils twitching, as if acknowledging her words. "And we're just beginning," she thought, a shiver of anticipation running through her. Exhausted, Isla turned toward the house to check on her father, intending to explain what they had done. But as she stepped into the hallway, an eerie stillness greeted her. The lights were dim, and there was no sign of her father anywhere. His boots were gone from the entryway, the familiar sound of his footsteps absent. "Father," she called softly, a ripple of unease settling in her chest. Shadow shifted, ears pricking forward, nostrils flaring at a distant faint scent. Something was wrong. Her heart quickened. She glanced around the quiet house, then at Shadow. He senses it, too. A cold realization sank in. Whatever they had uncovered tonight, whatever secrets Shadow had led her to, danger had followed them home, and it had taken her father. Shadow stamped his hoof, nudging her gently as if to say, "We have work to do." And just like that, Isla knew their next mission would be the most personal, and the most dangerous one yet. The night hung thick and heavy over the town, fog curling around the barns and pastures like a living thing. Isla's stomach churned with unease as she realized the truth. Her father was missing. The house was silent, his coat and boots gone from the entryway, and a cold knot of fear settled in her chest. Shadow stood beside her, ears pricked, nostrils flaring. He had sensed it before she had, the faint, unusual trail her father had left behind. "This is serious, Shadow," Isla whispered, brushing a hand along his mane. "We need to find him." Shadow stepped forward, confident and deliberate, nose low to the ground. Isla followed, mud and damp leaves soaking her boots, adrenaline thrumming through her veins. The trail led to the warehouse district. Shadow paused at an alley, pawing at the ground, ears flicking toward a faint scent that Isla could barely perceive. Slowly, the pieces fell into place. Her father had gone to investigate the stolen artifacts on his own. He had been worried about Isla taking unnecessary risks and wanted to stop the thieves before she got involved, but he had underestimated their cunning. Isla swallowed hard as she realized he had been caught, locked inside an abandoned shed by the criminals while they fled. "So that's why he went," Isla murmured, heart pounding. "He was trying to protect me. And Shadow." Shadow nudged her gently, urging her forward, and they pressed deeper into the fog-laden streets. Every step, every sound heightened the tension. Broken crates, rusted fences, and uneven ground made progress difficult, but Shadow moved with uncanny precision, avoiding hazards before Isla could even see them. At one point, a loose plank threatened to collapse under her weight, but Shadow shifted, pressing against her to steady her, then tapped the plank with his nose, causing it to fall harmlessly to the side. They finally arrived at the shed, tucked behind stacks of crates. Isla's heart pounded as she saw her father, tied to a post, pale but unharmed. "Father!" she cried, rushing forward. Shadow stepped protectively in front of him, muscles coiled, ears alert, nostrils flaring as though sensing any remaining danger. Her father looked up, eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and relief. "Isla, how?" "I followed Shadow," she said, voice steady. "He led me here. He knew where to find you." Shadow nudged her hand, calm and deliberate, as if reinforcing her words. The rescue required delicate coordination. Isla carefully untied her father while Shadow stayed alert, ears swiveling, muscles tense. A loose crate tipped unexpectedly, but Shadow intercepted it, pushing it aside with his strong nose before it could hit anyone. When a rusted gate groaned threateningly, Shadow nudged it back into place, keeping them both safe. Each obstacle highlighted not just his strength, but his intelligence. He anticipated dangers Isla would have overlooked. Once free, her father pulled Isla into a tight embrace. I should have listened to you," he admitted, voice trembling. "I doubted you and Shadow, but I see it now. You're both extraordinary. I don't understand how he could do all of this, but I trust him. And I trust you." Isla felt a surge of relief. "Father, I wasn't trying to disobey you. I just knew Shadow could do it, and I had to follow him." Her father's eyes softened as he studied Shadow. "He's remarkable. I underestimated him, and you. But I see it now. You work together. You trust each other. And it works." The walk back home was tense and quiet. The fog clung to the trees, and every snap of a twig made Isla flinch. Shadow moved confidently, sniffing the air, alert to every sound. At one point, they paused when a shadow shifted near a fence. Shadow pawed the ground, signaling caution. Isla held her breath as a fox darted across the path, and Shadow relaxed, indicating it was safe. Her father finally spoke, his voice quieter, reflective. "I kept thinking I had to protect you, that I had to stop you before something went wrong. But seeing what you can do together, I understand now. You and Shadow, you're a team. You see things I couldn't, and you trust each other. That's extraordinary." Isla nodded. "It's more than trust. It's a bond. He's more than a horse. He's my partner." Her father smiled faintly. "Then I want to be part of it. Not to control or stop you, but to support you. We'll do it together from now on. No more sneaking around alone." Shadow gave a soft nicker, nudging Isla's hand. His calm presence seemed to say he approved. Back at the stables, Isla brushed Shadow's mane, feeling the warmth of his body and the steady beat of his heart. "We did it," she whispered. Shadow stamped softly, ears twitching as if agreeing. Isla glanced at her father, who was watching both of them, a mixture of awe and pride in his expression. "Thank you," her father said quietly, almost to himself, "for saving me and for showing me how remarkable you both are. I see it now, fully." Isla smiled, heart full. This is just the beginning. There's more to discover, more mysteries, and now we can face them together. Shadow flicked his ears and lowered his head, calm and deliberate, as if acknowledging the unspoken promise. The horse nobody wanted had become her greatest ally, and together, the three of them, father, daughter, and horse, were ready for whatever mysteries lay ahead. Thank you for listening. If this horse story stayed with you, feel free to like, subscribe, and explore more stories on the channel. Until next time.